So I got a question. I gave my email address out. Somebody had a really helpful suggestion for someone to talk to. They didn't say on air, I assume they meant on air, about alternative ownership structures and their own MBA studies on that. And I think that could be really, I think it was Lou that sent me the note. And I forget the doctor's name. I read the email very quickly, who has examples that could be useful. But another question of people, my Twitter handle is @JeffersonD. And people ask me about my Twitter avatar. And it's Denny Dimwit, okay, is my Twitter avatar. And they ask why, and most people know who that is. Okay, I didn't know who that was. The reason is it's there is that the first words my dad said to me when I was born, I guess I don't even said it to me because at that time I did not speak English. I did not understand it either, or any other language. So he said it to my mother, who had just gone through an extraordinarily challenging labor. And as she's sitting there, drenched in sweat, having gone through untold pain, his first words are, as he sees his new son come into the world, held by the doctor's or nurse's hands, I don't know, I wasn't there. I guess I was there, but I don't really remember. First words out of my dad's mouth, "Sure is ugly. Thanks, Pop, appreciate it, love you." And it turned out my mother's, the labor was very challenging. In my head, when I was growing up, people said I had a banana head when I was born, because the birth was challenging and it squoze my head. Is squoze the word we're going to pretend it is? And my dad was corrected and said, no, it wasn't a banana head. It was a pointy head like Denny Dimwit. And so when he said I sure is ugly, he said, no, it wasn't ugly, you just looked like Denny Dimwit. And Denny Dimwit was a cartoon character with a pointy head. So if you're wondering why my Jefferson D. Smith Twitter avatar has pointy headed Denny Dimwit, is because that is who my dad says I look like upon my birth. This is probably not relevant enough to have spent as much time as I did. But I want to respond to the questions that you ask. You can also call 202-808-9925. That's 202-808-9925 and ask more questions, and I will try to give more relevant answers. Let's go to Omar, who is in second place for most patient. Omar from Herndon, good to hear from you, man.
Jefferson the Great, how are you, sir? That was very funny when you said we don't have water coolers, we have sinks now. I was laughing there for a minute. I was glad I was not next in the air because I couldn't stop laughing. But what I wanted to say is that, first of all, the only person who's been very active on this issue is Elizabeth Warren. Okay? She's the one who said that all these billionaires didn't make it on their own. They were government programs that helped them alone. They did not make it alone. So all these other candidates are just Johnny-come-lately, talking about wealth equality and all this. And I think the person who understands the issue and have solution is Elizabeth Warren. She knows what to do, and she knows what policy to put in place. And we have to rein in these rich guys, these billionaires, because they're taking advantage of us. Throughout history, they always took advantage of us. And we had to fight to get our right, to get to 40 hours a week, to get our labor laws. So they had to be reined in.
Omar, appreciate the call, and I want to amplify even a little bit. The posture I'm trying to take as new candidates announce is not to shoot one down or even promote one over another, but generally say, how do we build a 60% pro-democracy movement in the country, and how can we have a president and a Congress and state legislatures and city councils that and local co-ops and neighborhood associations that are pro-democracy organizations, not democracy for purposes of tyranny. Even democracy at its extreme could itself present its own problems. But so I'm trying to be a little careful not to platform for merely one candidate. But let me say this, for people who think that wealth inequality is a big deal, for people who think that taking on large corporate power is a big deal, I don't think there's ever been a candidate with greater expertise, with greater demonstrated commitment, and even track record on addressing that. And yes, I'm including Bernie Sanders, for whom I voted in the last Democratic primary. I don't think there's ever been a candidate who has, as the combination of his depth of knowledge, a spine of steel. This is somebody who people might not know, and she probably, I don't think, takes it at this point as a compliment and would rather me not bring it up, but started out as a registered Republican who, as a law professor, was trying to understand what was actually happening to markets, and came to her conclusions on what's happening to the American market system as honestly as one can. And I be that not by inheriting it or just by that's what her friends said, but by real understanding what was going on. From being at Harvard Law School and trying to figure out what was going on in tax policy, et cetera, and then becoming a crusader on these issues, not because she was trying to go where the power was, not because she was trying to go where she thought she'd get the most Twitter clicks, but because she was ahead of the curve in understanding our economic challenge. I'm trying to think of the last presidential candidate who was ahead of the economic curve, who didn't have to go to a set of policy advisors to say, what do you think we ought to do on this? I hear that it's important. I've seen AOC tweets. The kids are really into income equality. But in fact, who has been grappling with these questions since before she was even thinking she would be an elected official, and whose motives for being an elected official seemed closest to a deep why that is different from, well, it'd be nice to have power and get fancy and live in a nice house and have all people hang on your every word, but who has a why that is connected to a why that a lot of people care about. And I am, at this point, not trying to talk smack about any other candidate, but trying to build energy for a pro-democracy movement, including whatever the heck candidate emerges who will be able to champion that. But if you care about wealth inequality, I don't think there's ever been a candidate. And I say that maybe even as a challenge. You can call in and tell me, no, this candidate had greater economic expertise, greater tax policy expertise. And you may be right, and I may be missing somebody. But everybody I can think of, for her is not a set of talking points. She is helping to figure out the policy that generates the talking points. I appreciate the call. I guess I could have just said I agree with your call, Omar. That would have saved time. Nancy, Excelsior.
Oh, hi. Thank you. I'm going to hit this at a different angle, and I'll be as brief as possible. I'm reading a book called The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang. He's running for president as well.
Yes.
And what I am really beginning to understand, since I'm not an economic person, I work in mental health, is the effect of AI and automation and how that's going to affect our economy and jobs. Yep. So I'm learning.
His thing is universal basic income, right, Nancy?
Yeah. And I'm just fascinated by the research that's actually supporting how useful it is, not just from economics and, trickle up, but how it affects people's emotional well-being and creates, he does the, he's into humanity first, blah, blah, blah. But I was really happily surprised about all the different levels in which that can positively impact people, not just economically, but emotionally, socially, spiritually, and all that. So it's a thought. I was wondering what other people think about it, and I'd love to hear more and get more information about this. He said he would pay through a VAT tax. I don't know how that works, but that's just what I wanted to bring into the realm, because I believe economic justice is very, very important.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I've not read the book. I must acknowledge I try to consume books through book jackets and summaries too often, right? And also podcast interviews. My defense, other than laziness or being busy or trying to consume lots, is a former professor that I had that says, well, Jeff, most books, most nonfiction or scholarly books are probably better scholarly papers, but because most people don't subscribe to scholarly journals, they turn them into books so they can put them on shelves and sell them in airports. I'm in favor of books, buy books, including Thom Hartmann's books, but that's just my excuse for relying on book jackets. So I know Andrew Yang's central points, even though I haven't read his book. UBI, we'll talk about it after the break. And if money is happening not from humans, how do humans still pay for stuff?